She's going to laugh at my Excel document.
That's a huge statement.
Why couldn't Ainsley do bowling?
That's Joe.
That's Rooster.
And this is the Together We Shall podcast. What's up, Joe?
What's up, Rooster?
Bro, what's
Joe,
wrong?
I don't know if Joe's in podcast shape after Washington, D.C. this weekend. You're sounding a little raspy, my friend.
Well, that was interesting. Dan Cruz is here, ladies and gentlemen. Usually we banter a little bit with Joe, but Dan's jumping right in. He's going to say, I didn't know the rules. And then I'm going to say, that means you never listened to the podcast. And then Joe's going to say, I've never listened either. And suddenly I'm on an island by myself. But you know what? It's fun that way. What's up, Dan Cruz?
I want to hear Joe banter. Let's go back to Joe's voice. He sounds a little raspy. I was giving you an honest assessment of the opening intro.
Yeah, the voice is shut. It's done. I don't know. Like when this idea came up Sunday night at the bar, I was all right. Monday morning when I woke up like this, I was like, oh shit.
Dude, I think there's like two things you need to be a podcast host: a voice and okay, I guess that's it.
Oh, I have a voice. It's just not a good voice.
Well, you're lucky that Rooster and I don't have anything to say, so you can just kind of sit there and be a pretty face.
I'm going off screen and just working while you guys talk.
No,
I'll just pop in from time to time with like an emoji or something.
No, you got to bring up our handsome ratio. So we need you on, but you don't have to talk.
That's fair. Hey, Dan, so what we do when we kick this podcast off is we always say, like, who are you and where are you coming to us from? And then why do you think you're on the Together We Shall podcast? So you take those three things and run with them.
Well, my name is Dan Cruz, and I am coming to you from San Diego, California. Good morning. And the reason I'm joining the Together We Shall podcast is we are coming off of an incredible weekend at the Marine Corps Marathon, the 50th Marine Corps Marathon in Washington, D.C., where I finished the marathon my first time pushing as a rider, or no, as a runner. I still need to get the terminology down for 26.2 miles with Ainsley's Angels.
Well, that's pretty good, Joe. You would think that Dan is like used to a microphone or something.
You would think, yeah. I mean, Dan Cruz News has been around for a long time.
Yeah. Well, hey, in all sincerity, like I appreciate the recap of what you did Sunday, and we're going to talk a lot about that. But like a lot of people did that Sunday. Why are you here on Wednesday talking on the Together We Shall podcast? In your opinion, why are you the person that's on the show now?
I'm the person that's on this show right now because I think I can articulate the mission. I can articulate the relationship that the three of us have. And I think I can bring a little bit of a national presence, being on the West Coast here and highlight all the amazing things that we're doing, not only last weekend in Washington, D.C., but what we have coming up this weekend in San Diego, what we have coming up next weekend in Southern California, and the weekend after that. The work doesn't stop once you cross the finish line. We're just getting started.
That's what they say. There are no finish lines. That's I like where you brought it. You're looking forward. I'm going to rewind the clock for our listeners, and we're going to go way back. We're going to go backwards. So those of you that have been around for a long time might know that Ainsley and I ran the Marine Marathon in 2011. But months before we ran the Marine Corps Marathon, we had a chance to do the Rock and Roll Half Marathon. And that race was our very first half marathon. And Dan Cruz was affiliated with the Rock and Roll Marathon series and all the things. So I've known Dan for a little bit of time. Dan, take us back to your kind of journey in the running community and in the PR world. Like, when did that all kind of start, knowing that you got to get us to 2011 in your story somehow?
Yeah, my story is concise. I was not a runner. I had no affiliation with the running community. I was an athlete growing up playing sports, but, running was a lap you had to do when you showed up late for soccer practice, right? Or it was suicides in the gym at the end of basketball practice. But at the time, I was training for the Rock and Roll Marathon in San Diego with my girlfriend, who I had just moved in with. And the PR position opened up for Elite Racing. Competitor Group had just bought the company, and they were looking for someone who wasn't necessarily like a track and field, kind of numbers guy, someone who had a little bit more kind of mainstream, bigger picture relationships. And so I joined the organization in 2008. I was 26 years old. At the time, we had 5 rock and roll marathon events, Virginia Beach being one of them. And fast forward, I never could have foreseen, the 10 years ahead, 10 years in Virginia Beach, working that Labor Day weekend race, and doing all the publicity, and social media was a brand new thing. Twitter was a startup. Instagram hadn't even been invented. So I was super fortunate to kind of have a front row seat as PR and media and content change, and these races just grew. And so that's when we crossed paths right there, Labor Day weekend in 2010 or 2011.
Yeah, you said 2010 or 2011. I struggle sometimes with which one it was, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I know that there was a day that I went to the starting line with my Ainsley, and we ran that race, and we ran every rock and roll until she passed away, and then we continued to try to do them, and then that race ended here in Virginia Beach, and times have shifted, and everybody has pivoted appropriately. And that is what I think is important too about kind of the journey of running. Like, there's going to be these things that are going to happen along the way, and if you can ever take running and apply them to real life, it's really neat, the parallels, unforeseen, and then they happen. But can you take us back even further than that? Like, Dan, where'd you grow up? Where'd you come from? Like the short story there, Dan Cruz
Yeah.
News. I mean,
Well, my last name is Puerto Rican, but I'm only 25%. But no, I had the best childhood growing up in a suburb outside of Sacramento, California, Roseville. My parents, they lived on one of those streets where we had 4th of July parades, and if you needed to build a fence, all the neighborhood dads would chip in. And so I learned a lot about hard work from a father who was a construction worker, and he didn't take a lot of BS, but he definitely gave us kids a lot of opportunity. And so we grew up playing sports, and we always had the best equipment, and we didn't have a big mansion house. We lived in a regular home, but my mother was a PE teacher, and her first year as a high school PE teacher, fresh out of college, in her PE class was Olympian or future Olympian Evelyn Ashford. All the way to her last year, she was a teacher at the high school where I went to high school. She had half of my friends in class. Her last year, she had Raiders left tackle Colton Miller was in her class. So her first year starting out with Evelyn Ashford, future Olympian, and then her final year as a teacher, one of the best NFL linemen in the game today. So my mom definitely was a big part of my upbringing, and really encouraged us as kids to be active, to play sports. And that's where we made friends, and that's where we learned about, so many things that help you in life: teamwork, communication, responsibility, respect, how to listen, give your best, and things of that nature. So I was definitely number 3 on the podium, though, between athletic ability with my brother and sister.
got it. That's Joe. There's a lot there, Joe. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely said that before, like that speech. That he's practiced that one probably once or twice.
I've been nervous.
It's funny though, like you talk about and we talked about it Sunday at post race, like the growing up and how we grew up, like you just said, playing sports and all that, and putting our boys into it. Our boys aren't too far apart age wise, and it's like, I tell people all the time, the lessons that I learned on the baseball diamond are life lessons. They're not baseball lessons, they're life lessons. And that's, it's awesome to hear other people say that as well.
Yeah, no, indeed. And when you start talking about life lessons, it makes me want to pause and say it's Miller time. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining in on the Together We Shall podcast, you came at a good time. Miller time's that point in the show when you grab your favorite beverage, and you let it do what it's got to do here early morning time. Dan, what are you drinking here from Miller time?
It's only it's early in California, so I'm still working on my first cup of coffee.
No, that's outstanding. In fact, Miller time does not imply anything to do with the company in Milwaukee. Joe, what are you doing?
I got some apple juice, but I should probably find something that's going to be a little better for my voice.
I almost spit out
some warm tea.
I almost spit out my Monster because my wife and I were driving back from DC, and she told me that you shared with her that you recently discovered apple juice, and she also told me she recently shared with you exactly how apple juice plays a role in our life, and therefore I almost spit out my Monster. But you discovered apple juice, huh, Joe?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I was always an orange juice guy, I guess. And then, like, my kids started drinking apple juice, and I took a sip, and I was like, damn, this shit is good.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it is.
I don't need orange juice anymore.
In the military, namely aviation, Dan, whenever you go out and you fly a mission and the mission's over, one of the brevity terms that's used is it's Miller time, which means get your stuff and get back to base. And so Miller time's always a fun moment in the show, and adds a little bit of levity, I think, to it. Dan, I don't know if my screen's going to share or if my audio is going to share, but there's this thing. Yeah, it will. I can include sound. I'm going to pop over here. I'm going to hit play. And just listen to this. And for those on YouTube that need captioning, you can watch this. There we go.
Hey, I absolutely love that question. I figured there was no better way to answer this than to bring Dan in. If y'all don't know Dan, I mean, I could give you his bio, but hey, Dan Cruz, the rock and roll, I'll let him tell you who he is in a minute. But before we get into answering this, Dan, I got to say, man, it's just truly an honor to have you here in our Finish Line store. And and Bradley, zoom up here. Let's give some history here.
This is a shrine.
Yeah, this right here at the top. This is when Ainsley first ran her first half marathon. The Rock and Roll Virginia Beach with Team Hoyt Virginia Beach in 2010. And you can come back down to me now. And I tell you, it was Dan that was there for rocking and rolling and doing all the PR things and great stuff. But I'm gonna let Dan introduce himself, I promise. But this would have been Ainsley's 7th rock and roll half. And of course, as you learned, Kendall Jade's going to go ahead and roll in Ainsley's chair, and she's going to become a half marathoner. But having Dan here is great because we can answer that question in great detail. But Dan, thanks again, brother, for being here.
Rooster, thanks for having me. This has been a treat. We've obviously been going back and forth, and you guys have been a big part of our Virginia Beach event with the folks at Team Hoyt for many years. And to be here in the shrine with all this gear, all this swag, this is truly special. Cheers to a great weekend.
Yeah, brother. I look forward to toasting a beer with you here in just a minute. But first, let's get to business. So the question's got something to do with it. How do you
Yeah, so if any of you want to watch the rest of those two youthful gentlemen in 2017 in my garage, that's a Spotlight episode series. It's the first time I ever had a chance to flip the script on Dan Cruz and interview him. Spotlight Saturdays on our YouTube channel, and that's episode 34. But Dan, what's up, bro? Did I just throw it back for you? What did you think about it as you watched that?
Well, the first thing I thought about was when he said, well, we'll toast a beer. I think we had already toasted one pre-recording that. But the other thing, to bring it full circle, you gave me a visor and some swag because we were in the Mecca, the shrine, like we said. And that was the visor that you gave me that day that I wore at the Marine Corps Marathon last Sunday.
How about that, man? How about that? I love it. I love it when the whole full circle happens. Joe, I know you got some smart comments after watching that.
I mean, Dan nailed the one about the toasting a beer. Definitely was one already toasted. And I love how he still got his pass on, in the garage. That means nothing out there.
I think I came straight from the expo. That was great.
Yeah, to the listener, Dan's got his rock and roll competitor. He's got his whole polo on, and around his collar there, it's his staff, all access, even to the Mecca, the Ainsley's Angels, what is now my garage, but has served so many purposes. We used to fulfill every Ainsley's Angels finish line order out of that garage. It was pretty cool stuff. But yeah, I figured out. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, honestly, it was educational for me. It was impressive to go to the garage and just kind of see what you guys were building, right? When you're working as a staff member in the finish line and the start line, you don't see some of the other details and logistics. And to go and kind of see what was just at the time, kind of this growing organization, it was great to see. And it showed me that there was much more than, a couple of parents out there, doing an activity with their kids. And so that was a tremendous afternoon and one I'll never forget.
Yeah, dude. And to fast forward the clock, a couple of years later, you find yourself out there, and Ainsley's Angels in Southern California is coming on the scene there. And eventually the torch is passed a few times and lands with our good friend Trisha. And man, what a team Dan Cruz and Trisha Benton have been when it comes to education, advocacy, and celebration, huh?
Well, you two are some of my favorite people on planet Earth, but, one of my most favorite people is Trisha Benton. I mean, she is just a gem and a breath of fresh air at each and every race. And so, yeah, once I left the Rock and Roll Marathon series and, kind of bounced around and did the whole job thing, we got on with motorsports and we were doing the Surf City Marathon. And looking to pitch stories. And it was a lot different than rock and roll, right? Because they didn't have any Kenyans or professional athletes running these races. They didn't have any bands on the course or a headline concert at the finish. And so, pitching some of these human interest stories and stories about the reasons why people run, was our predominant way to get out there into the media. And so, fast forward, obviously the pandemic was a tough time to be in the running business. For me especially, I lost my job. But also for parents and families of Ainsley's Angels, when there's no races for people to come together, a lot of our participants, these families don't have soccer tournaments or basketball tournaments where they could kind of build community. And that's what our events do for each and every weekend. And so to kind of bring those races back and really make sure that inclusion and Ainsley's Angels was part of that story, because there was great attention with the media in terms of the first marathon after the COVID, the first 5K after the pandemic, and then to have someone like Trisha who was there each and every weekend, nice and early with our beautiful pink branding. It made my job easier to line up some of those news interviews at the different events.
And Joe, you got to go out there and see Dan integrate with our SoCal family in a beautiful way. What was that like? Because you've seen him from Virginia Beach, where you were born and where you were raised, and now you're out there.
Yeah, it was one of those like the National Geographic. The guy talking is like, look at the predator in his natural environment. Like the palm trees are everywhere. He knows every single person out there, every runner, every person pushing a luggage cart full of beer to the guy plugging in the mic across the street. He knew everyone. It was overwhelming.
But beautiful. I mean, we talk about meaning, relationships, and the powerfulness of engagement. And what I see when I see Dan out there, when I see Dan anywhere, is he has found he has passion and purpose, which has led to meaning in his life. And that meaning has quickly become tied to this idea of having relationships. And when he sees those people and he develops authentic relationships, then it's like how he engages. And these are kind words, Dan. I mean, we like to take pause and honor. We like to joke. We also like to say, like, these are beautiful attributes that you have. So know that.
No, thank you. And I'm listening and I'm absorbing. And I think that's what was so special about, Saturday night is kind of, receiving that. Oh, I should have had my coin here for the podcast. It's in my room. But just kind of hearing what you said, Rooster. I mean, in our business, I always say the running business, the event business, it's a people business, right? The runners are people, the sponsors are people, the charity participants are people, the volunteers are people, and you have to treat people well, especially when you're asking them to get up at 4:00 in the morning. And so, yeah, to fast forward, with the Surf City Marathon, which is a tremendous event, I'm going to make an announcement later when you give me an opportunity. But it's our 30th anniversary coming up in February. We've been able to integrate Ainsley's Angels into that amazing oceanfront beer garden. So 100% of the proceeds from all of the beer drinking on site at the event goes directly to help fund chairs and buy chairs. It goes right back into the organization. And so that's been a partnership that I'm proud to have helped facilitated. And we really have, big opportunity in front of us.
Yeah, you alluded to this coin that you should have brought to the podcast today, but for our listeners that don't understand what we're referring to, Ainsley's Angels has multiple roles that people can be involved. Obviously, first and foremost is our rider athletes, the people who pull the runners through the courses. And of course, our caregivers are critical in that process, getting our riders to the race and caring for them every day. And sometimes people don't stop to think about what happens when a rider goes out for a run. It provides a caregiver, a 24/7 nurse, respite. And that's a beautiful, beautiful gift to give to someone. And then the runner takes them out on the course and runs. And of course, our guardian angels, our third role, this is someone who is helping with chairs and putting them together and helping with engagement and all sorts of tasks and wonderful opportunities. And there's this thing we have called an ally. And on Saturday night, I had the opportunity to present Dan in front of a room full of hundreds of people with a presidential coin for inclusion excellence, for being an angel ally, well before we even termed the phrase. And so that's what Dan's referring to. And the coin is one of only 14 that I've had the honor of presenting to people since 2011. So it's a big deal. Dan, you're a heck of an ally, and we're grateful to have you in the family.
No, and I just can't express how much it meant to me. I mean, and even showing that video a few minutes ago, I always say, you know, I think one of my perspectives and one thing I thought about was, you know, kind of, and we think about the word inclusion, right? You know, inclusion starts with respect, right? You have to respect the person as a person, you know, to allow them a seat at the table. And I go back to my dad. We were talking about my upbringing. You know, respect is not given; it's earned, right? And so to kind of see that full circle moment, you know, really it wasn't lost on me, because in my business, in the PR business, when you're calling people and you're asking for favors, or you're trying to, you know, set up meetings and connect people and things of that, you're only as good as your reputation. And so to kind of have that coin definitely is something that I'm always going to cherish, because it validates my reputation and, you know, just how I've carried myself each and every day throughout my career, and try to be consistent, right? Consistency is the hardest part. I always say that for the social media strategy, right? Anyone can post on Twitter once. You know, what are you going to post tomorrow? What are you going to post next week? What are you going to post next month, right? That's the hardest part, is being consistent. And that coin was definitely something I'm always going to remember, as far as, you know, making sure that I keep consistency front and center.
That the idea of consistency, like, I mean, when was the last time you two saw each other? Right.
Great question.
I hadn't seen 2017. I mean, we text a lot of photos. Anytime I got an Ainsley's Angels koozie on my Sunday afternoon cerveza, I always send you guys a text, and we've kept in touch. But yeah, I hadn't seen Rooster until he gave me that bear hug since Labor Day weekend, 2017.
And that's what you talk about, like the respect and the purity of individuals. Because it was the same thing, like when I ran into you in Boston a handful of years ago, hadn't seen you in a while, and you were like, "Hey, come with me," and you were on Dan Cruz's mission. Hey, this is Adidas and this, and like, hey, this is my friend Ainsley Andrews. They push people, and you know, it's just like boom, 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 like spreading that allyship. Just, and I hadn't seen you in probably 5 years at that point.
And that's really the lesson we're highlighting here. You know, the consistency with really authentic relationships, and that an ally is one who's gonna extend their hand and say, "Come with me. I want to help you. I want you to come. I want to open a door for you. You can trust me to lead the way." But it's the other side of that coin too. It's got to be reciprocated. You can't always, you know, if you live your life where you're constantly looking for someone to hold a hand out to help you with something, then that's a way. But what I really love about the allies that I think we have in our Ainsley's Angels family is not only are they extending their hand to help, but then they're being filled with so much, you know, intangible joy and energy as a reciprocation for their kindness. You know what I mean by that, Dan? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, well, 100%, Rooster. I mean, you know, my cup is full of that. You know, I'm not good at that part of the one thing that was impressive about Saturday night was your, you know, willingness to cry and be vulnerable, and that's still something that I need to work on. But when you talk about, you know, how I was feeling, you know, at this weekend, and just being around our community, being around our team, engaging with other families, and making new friends, and then seeing people out on the course. You know, during that Marine Corps marathon, these vibrant pink sweatshirts were everywhere. And so it just felt so good to be part of something bigger, and something that we shouldn't take for granted. You know, it wasn't, you know, too long ago that, you know, people with disabilities didn't have an opportunity to participate, right? There weren't steps taken to include everyone, and they were kind of forced to sit on the sidelines. And so, you know, we're still just getting started, and I definitely, as an ally, and you know, receiving that award and being a part of and experiencing it for my very first time in our nation's capital last weekend. The cup is full, my cup is overfloweth. What, you know, all that jazz.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're just tuning in, this is the Together We Shall podcast with Dan Cruz. He's out there in Southern California drinking on his coffee early in the morning. And we're grateful to have him on the show now, a recent presidential coin recipient and a heck of an Ainsley's Angels ally. Joe, what are you thinking about right now on this episode 59?
I'm thinking about a kind of a little bit of a funny. Dan said the other day, a few minutes ago, about waking up at 4 a.m. to go do things. And, you know, sometimes you need a couple extra minutes, and you can wake up at 4:20 and still go and do those things. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you just need that little extra wink of sleep.
I think we're about to get a behind the scenes look into race day morning. I think that might be where you're headed. Are we going there right now, or was that all we get?
Yeah.
Oh, I think we can go
behind
there.
the scenes was really behind the scenes. But yeah.
No, I had the 418 behind the scenes. at 4, because that's when you guys scared me. Let's take this back a little bit, right? So Saturday night, for those tuning in and we're listening, it's the Marine Corps Marathon, the 50th run, and they got 40,000 marathoners, and Joe gets up there to review all the logistics. Scared me that I needed to be in the van by 4:30 because wheels were moving. So I even moved my alarm earlier. So I was up at 3:55 just so I would not be late in the lobby. Of course, I couldn't find my glide or my headphones or something. So, it's 4:18. I'm like, I got to get down there. Who's the first person I run into in the stairwell? Rooster. Rooster looks like he's on a mission, over in Iraq, and I could just see it right in his eyes. Got to go wake up Joe. I was like, oh, I just kept going. I didn't say one more thing. I just kept going. So I'll let you pick up the story from there, Rooster. How did you get to the stairwell at 4:18?
Yeah. So, wow, dude, I forgot I even saw you. Dude, I was on a damn mission. So, like, my alarm clock was like 3:55 as well. I got up, I showered, I got squared away, did what I needed to do, and I texted Joe at I don't know, 4:05 or something. Hey man, I'm taking the stairs. We're on the 4th floor, but if you take the stairs, it's 7 flights down, and you can get there faster than the elevator. So I say I'm stepping. So I go down there. When I get down there, dude, there's nobody. Nothing's happened. And usually Joe is like in the van. It's running. He's got coffee and music, and he's hollering about something, and there was nothing. And that spidey sense came over me, like he didn't answer my text earlier. So then I hit him again. I was like, bro, proof of life or something like that. Nothing.
Proof of life.
4:17. I had just moved the van where it needed to be. This is 4:17 a.m. We're leaving at 4:30, friends. This is early morning. We got to go. Road closures start happening at like 5 a.m. And the only way to get to Joe's room, which by the way was the 4th floor, was back to that ladder well. So I swipe my card and I start going up. And at the whole time, I could feel my heart increasing because I'm like, no, I can't do this without Joe awake right now. And I get up to halfway up the stairs, and I'm on a mission. Apparently, I saw Dan Cruz.
Oh, I saw you. Oh, you looked right at me, and I got out of the way.
And then I got up there. I got around. It was like boom, boom, boom into the door. And nothing. And I'm like, bro, dude, don't know. And then I did it again. And I'm waiting for people to start coming out of their rooms, which Tad McDaniel did. He walks out. He's like, are you all right? As he's going down, I'm like, I'm nothing to see here, buddy. I did it again. And then the door opens and it's Joe. I've seen him in this outfit more times in the years. And the outfit is, he just literally rolled out of bed and the boom, boom, boom woke him up. Joe, I'll let you take over from here.
Yeah. So I too backdated my alarms Saturday night, and I have still not deleted them because it's a reminder to don't F up again. But yeah, boom, boom, boom. I saw you. You're like,
you're smiling.
And I'm just in my drawers. I'm like, oh my God. I didn't even look at a clock, didn't know anything. I put on the closest clothes I could find, some of which were worn the night before, socks, shoes, and grab my bag and hoping that things are in it and down the stairs.
Yeah. And, so before you got down the stairs, I don't want to take it back. It was funny because when I opened the door and you saw me, I didn't say a word. I just looked at you. And
I don't think there was any word said.
There was no word said. And I think it was 4:21. I left your room with full confidence that we were going to be running late in the morning.
But we were not. Right?
But we were not. So it was freaking great. Go ahead.
We were driving to base, and I looked at the Marine next to me, and I was like handing him some things at the passes, and I'm like, dude, I gotta pee, because there wasn't time to do that before. Yeah. And I'm like, if this gate traffic's backed up, there's gonna be a mess. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So even before you got in the car and we're driving away, this was great. It was 4:28. And I'm standing by the van, and here comes Joe. He's like, never miss a movement, sir. And I'm like, oh my God, wow. So in the Marine Corps and in the Navy, if you miss a movement, which means the ship's leaving the port at 10 a.m. or the Marine formation is at 6:42, missing a movement is a bad thing, punishable by the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice. I did not, in my wildest dreams, have the confidence, and I'm going to admit it, that you in 7 minutes were going to be fully dressed and standing in front of me. Didn't miss a movement, sir. So hats off to you, bro. I don't know how you did it, but you did it. And at the end of the day, you looks like you can sleep till 4:21 every Marine Corps marathon going forward.
No, because my heart was redlined for like an hour trying to come down from that. Because,
Fair.
I post knee surgery down 4 but 7 flights of stairs.
Yeah.
I'm like galloping and it hurts. I'm like,
not good.
Terrible.
Not good at all. But anyway.
And you didn't grab your brace. You were kind of discombobulated leaving. I mean, it just set us up for a little bit more of a chaotic morning. But we had the fluff, right? The fluff was the key part of the planning, because you made the point, and I think you jinxed yourself when you said
100%.
you built in extra time. And the reality was that start line experience for someone like me, who had never been to this event before, but I've worked hundreds of triathlons, 5Ks, marathons, was incredible. I mean, you guys with the logistics and how our team was set up and organized. I mean, I was up in New York City the day before, as you know. I had a 5K event that I was working. I didn't look at the start line map. I didn't even look at the course map. And then, for us to park right on base, right to the start, our team to come together, the pre-event program to get us out to the starting line, that was the best part of the morning, leaving our tent and seeing everybody come together. It was special. So despite the a little bit of the chaos, that just makes it more memorable.
And so you did get a couple extra minutes in that the changing tent. Caught you snoozing.
I thought it was a massage tent, but it was a changing tent, and I definitely caught a little disco nap in there about 5:15.
So for all our listeners, that you might remember Joshua, he came on the show 2 episodes ago, and he talked about universal changing tables and how important they are, and it's something we need to think about for all of our friends who can't just go into any bathroom and have what they need. And as a result of that initiative, we had a changing table and a changing tent unique for all of our friends. The Southeast Michigan folks with PJ and Joshua brought that, and we set it up. And so what Joe's referring to is Dan, I guess, thought it was a massage table. We need to get Dan to listen to the episode about. Not joking. No, it's cool though.
I do.
It's
hey,
all
I saw was a bed, a cot, and I was like, I can stay off my feet. I needed another 10 minutes.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the rider who's getting ready to do this 5-hour race needs to change their undergarment. They bust in there, and there's Dan Cruz news. I just got 5 more minutes.
Snoring.
Yeah, no, the pre-race festivities, when everybody assembles and you get to your chariot and you meet your runner and the buzz is in the air, and then I'd really love the fact that we are 100 meters away from Arlington National Cemetery, and all the stresses that is race morning and prepping for a marathon for a year and all the things. To have the honor of hushing the crowd for a moment of silence before we step, and to really put it into context that we are about to do an amazing thing and all your worries shouldn't be worries anymore. You didn't expect that coming to you there, did you, Dan?
Again, I had no idea what to expect. I was blind to the process. I didn't look at a course map, a start line grid. I didn't know anything. I came into it fresh, other than my own experience being to, like I said, hundreds of races. And so, yeah, to walk out, to get through the base was so smooth. So many Marines were up and personable and welcoming. Great representation of the Marine Corps from the second we parked our vehicle. And then just to kind of see that view, and you showed it to me personally, Rooster, we kind of came around the sidewalk there, and there was our nation's monuments, and it was a cool, crisp morning. I mean, the headline of the weekend should have been just how glorious and spectacular the race day conditions were as far as the weather, because you couldn't ask for a better morning. It was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, you nailed it. When Ainsley and I did it in 2011, it snowed when I was walking to Packet Pickup. Yeah, and then it cleared out, and we ended up stepping off at I guess it was 42 degrees, warmed up to 55 over the course of the race. But that's wild, dude. It's snowing. Yeah, so we had perfect weather, and what Dan alluded to is where our charity tent is. It's at the War Memorial, the Iwo Jima War Memorial, and it overlooks the National Mall. You can see Lincoln Memorial, all of the reflecting pond up to Lincoln Monument, to the Washington Monument, and then beyond to the Capitol, and they're all in a row, and it is so breathtaking. Such a beautiful place to run.
It was just, yeah, breathtaking is a great word. And then, like I said, to get our team together, to have your leadership, Rooster, in terms of our pregame pep talk, everything you needed was there. Snacks, ice, gum, Band-Aid, whatever we needed. And then to kind of exit through the village as we did to get down to the starting line was just something I'll never forget. It felt so good. And we hadn't even started running the race yet. And I just know that's exactly how I want to feel before every marathon.
So you got the heck of an experience going from an Angel ally to an Angel runner marathoner, and cheers to you on that journey. That's really awesome. Joe, is it too early to ask about if anybody wants to do it next year?
No, you can ask. They sent me a text yesterday. Marine Corps Marathon didn't sign up.
No, don't do that. We have our own process.
Yeah. But I'm just saying that if they're marketing, we should be marketing.
For the 71 listeners to this, don't follow Marine Corps Marathon instructions. Email Joe at Ainsley'sAngels.org.
That's Joe at Ainsley'sAngels.org. Eventually, we'll have a link that we'll share that people can just pop in there and get to secure their spot. But
I know you are over editing, we've moved on past that for the podcast, but there might need to be an overlay of my voice or something. I don't know if that's possible.
No, not a chance, Marine.
I don't even
Not
know
a
why I'm
chance.
speaking still.
Yeah, I don't edit anymore, as our listeners know. So you don't have to speak anymore. We'll stop calling on you, Joe. Dan, you mentioned something earlier about a big announcement. Is it time for Dan's big announcement?
Nah, let's do my announcement at the sign. I want to keep talking about the race because, cool. I don't want to. We got you to the start line. Now, there's one point of feedback I'm going to give to the organizers, and I don't really know anyone on the operations team, but I'll try to work it. I did feel that the start line production could have had more pomp and circumstance. They had the cannon, but why was it so quiet?
It was worst ever. Worse than the 10 years I've been there. Worst.
Here's
ever.
the only feedback I have.
No,
the speakers weren't working. That's the deal. The guy was talking from the time we got there. We couldn't hear any of the audio. And I even told a few Marines, hey, you let them know we can't hear them. In fact, I could barely hear the national anthem. But
couldn't hear the national anthem. People were getting shushed.
Yeah, it was bad. And usually there's also flyovers that are happening. Different things happening in the air. Yeah, none of that stuff.
I thought there'd be a presentation of the colors. I thought there'd be fireworks for the 50th run-in, the 250th anniversary of the Navy or the Marine Corps. I definitely thought that area was one area of opportunity for improvement. And then I was thinking it can't really be a noise ordinance because there's several events that I'm involved with in San Francisco that start in Golden Gate Park, and you can't play sound because of the neighborhood. If you want to have your half.
Yeah. Their speakers.
They shot a cannon off. I was like, they shot the cannon. You can play music. Come on, people.
There's definitely no ordinance. I think it's two things. The speaker system wasn't working, and I also think elements of this could have been impacted by the shutdown, the government shutdown, having certain flyovers.
Good point.
So I'm not defending
that perspective.
I'm not defending the fact that I'm not defending this. You're right. That was the lowest expected. The start was not what it usually is. We'll just go with that. But what it was though was it was a record-setting display of inclusion between our 51 duo teams and our friends at Athletes Serving Athletes, at Team Hoyt, at the Kyle Peace Foundation, at another one I'm forgetting off the top of my head. We were knocking on 75 assisted riders, plus all our friends at Semper Fi Fund and all the folks that use the hand-propelled chairs, the cycle hand cycles. Inclusion won at the starting line. I will circle us back to that for sure.
I saw a colleague, Jay Holder, longtime media member, longtime communications executive with now he's with USA Track and Field, was with Running USA, Atlanta Track Club, and a whole bunch of others. Jay was pushing. He passed me like I was standing still about 400 meters into the race. He's a fast guy. But, shout out Jay Holder for participating in the Marine Corps Marathon with a push duo. But I do want to say one more thing. How incredible, and we're talking about running with Ainsley's Angels in 2026, and exclusive this VIP experience was to be able to park on base, to be able to walk not very far to the tent and have your team and everything you need, bathrooms, snacks, whatever, and then to get right to the front the whole time I'm sitting there going, where's the other 40,000 runners? Where's all the other people? We're the only ones here. We got right in the front. And I'm going, I thought there was 40,000 people because they're way in a different area. They don't get the same access that we do.
Now, you eventually found those 40,000 runners as they came running up behind you.
They caught me soon. But during the start, I was like, where is everybody?
Yeah, and I should point out that, like, you're right, Dan. It's really special the way that we are able to have our folks with disabilities, taken care of to make sure they can have, the closest access as possible. And of course, as a person who's volunteered your legs to help that rider, we want to extend to you the opportunity to have linking up with them as fast as possible. It does feel like you're a VIP, which is really, really special. And for all our listeners that are listening, there isn't any special thing that's happening. It's really about just setting the conditions for accessibility. And that's really beautiful. When you set the conditions for accessibility, it helps the person feel almost as if they are a VIP, because every day of their life, they have to go out of their way to find a curb cut, or to find an Uber that can allow them to put their wheelchair in the Uber, or to find an elevator that's big enough for maneuverability, or a door that doesn't have even the smallest 3-inch step up. These are things that our folks that use wheelchairs to navigate life have to think about every day. And what we like to offer the morning of Marine Corps Marathon, and frankly, anytime we have a chance, is a worry-free, accessible experience. So I appreciate you highlighting that, Dan. It's
10 out of 10, no notes. I was surprised that you were behind a chair running with us there, and it was a pretty incredible weekend. Again, the start, I wasn't all right. Someone, I think it was an operations for you. Go, your turn. I'm going. Okay, I guess we're running now. But I do want to just talk a little bit about pushing, because I did push at the Coronado, the 5K, the 4th of July race, the Crown City Classic, a 5K, which was, and I had kids growing up, and I trained for a marathon with them running a running stroller. I will say those chariots, those carts with 40,000 people, you spend a lot of time making sure that you're trying to be considerate to other runners, and making sure that your safety is pretty much paramount, especially during those first few miles. Because you're going uphill, then you're going downhill, and you got hand cycles passing you, and all the fast people are passing you. I definitely caught myself about mile 4 or 5. I was tense, because again, I was, trying to make sure it's not just a forward push motion. When I was training for the race, I did a lot of push-ups, but you got to stop, you got to go, you got to turn. And so I'm proud to say that I only had about 3 close calls, quasi collisions with runners over 26.2 miles. So I felt good about that. I felt like there could have been a lot of mishaps if I wasn't paying more attention.
I like how you said with runners, because you definitely had a few curb checks too.
Well, when I saw you, so let's go through the day. So now, for those of you who have never been on the Marine Corps Marathon course, incredible route. I mean, we talked about the weather, spectacular weather, and what does, if it's snowing, people ain't going to be out there holding signs. Because it was such a beautiful, perfect day, that was no doubt a New York Marathon, Boston Marathon level of spectators on the course. I mean, they were 3-4 deep in some parts. And so I saw Joe, and the beautiful part of the Ainsley's Angels is we have our vibrant pink, and you can get around the course. You can see people 3 or 4 different times. And so what we're talking about here is one time I saw Joe, and I tried to kind of stop, and we were going around a roundabout, and I curb checked the chair, and poor Cassidy almost bounced out. She was, hold on here. It's a good thing she was wearing a seatbelt. But no, it was thank you so much, Joe, for your support. And it was so great to see everyone. And what a spectacular course. You kind of go out and back on Rock Creek Parkway, you go through Georgetown. And by the time you get to the monuments and the mall, I mean, you're already, halfway through the race.
Yeah, you mentioned Cassidy a minute ago. I've known Cassidy for a long, long time. In fact, I know she'll listen to this because she's going to want to hear your perspective. When I first met Cassidy, it was at a 5K for an elementary school.
The Love Run.
The Love Run here in Virginia Beach. And Cassidy is, I don't know her height, but she's not tall. And she was there the first time there when I met her, and I walked up to her and I said, "So hey, do you go to this elementary school? Is this your school?" I said it just like that. And she's like, "Are you in preschool?" And I was like, "Whoa, what just happened here?" Yeah, she's like, "I'm 20, you assumer." And I'm like, "Bro," she got me because I like to think I'm really good about not leading with a unvalidated assumption too often. I loved it. And from there, we've just kicked it off, and our banter's great. So, how was the banter and the chatter and the encouragement from our friend Cassidy? Go ahead, Joe,
quick,
before Dan.
For Dan. So, go back a year, post MCM finish, 10 experience last year. Cassidy's like, hey, can you push me next year? And I'm like, yeah, sure, got it. Well, when I got injured back in the spring, and I was like, man, I gotta get her with a loose cannon like myself, and none other than old curb check Dan Cruz came to mind. So it was the absolute perfect replacement.
Yeah, no, I love that detail. So there you go. Now you know, Dan. You were second fiddle to Joe.
And that was great. Me and Cassidy, we have become, good friends, and I've only met her for the first time last Saturday night. She was amazing. She was outstanding. And I hope her feet have warmed up, Cassidy, if you're watching, because it was cold. It was chilly that morning. It was good for the runners, right? I brought my throwaway jacket, and I ditched that at mile 2. But we had a great time. But about mile 4, she said something. My feet are still freezing. I don't know what I can do to help you. And what she did do, though, to help me, and I want to give her a special shout out because I remember, and it really gave me a good moment, was her parents or someone gave her a couple of those hand warmers. And then she gave me one of those hand warmers. And so early on, or maybe right before we started, I was able to, kind of get my hands warm with one of those little pocket warmers to control that chair a little bit better. But no, I mean, you talk about the Ainsley's Angels community and just seeing people that I had met, the night before at the pasta party, at the hotel bar, the 2 nights before, and then to see those people multiple times around the course. And I will say, we had the chariot with the team Team Cassidy on it. There was no bigger celebrity than Team Cassidy on that course. We must have gotten thousands, 2,000 shout outs from spectators with encouragement, with "Go Team Cassidy." And so she was one of the biggest celebrities in Washington, D.C. on Sunday morning, and I was happy to help get her across the finish line.
We put those signs on every single chair, and I think every single rider feels like they were the biggest celebrity in DC. It's amazing.
It's so great. And, they even talk about that for my friend Ted Batella's shout out New York City Marathons this weekend. He was giving people advice on a recent podcast or one of his videos to put your name on your bib or your name on your shirt so people and spectators can cheer you on. Well, it was absolutely perfect because, again, like I said, if I heard it 2 times, I heard it 2,000 times. Team Cassidy, so shout out there. We had so much fun. We definitely partake in all the on-course activities. I think I grabbed a piece of banana bread out there. I ate everything anyone gave to me. And I will say, our Ainsley's Angels team at mile 22 probably had one of the most popular aid stations with the Coca-Cola, flat Coca-Cola. We had pretzels, we had candy, we had a whole bunch of goodies. And so that didn't just benefit us and our 50 athlete riders. That benefited the entire event because that team was working great, and they needed those snacks there at mile 22. So the course experience and just seeing all the signs and seeing all the people, and that's really what makes these major big city marathons so special and so different than a normal race where you're on a bike path and there's no spectators. It was truly a day I'll never forget.
I didn't ask you this. Did they have the animal crackers on the course this year?
At our aid station did.
Those gotta go. I remember the first year they put at animal cracker. Yeah, and they were in like that little cup. I'm like, now I can't breathe. There's nothing. I'm like, I need some milk. I'm like, this is horrible. No animal crackers.
I didn't have one, but they were on the table for sure.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, y'all listen to Dan Cruz recap the 50th running the Marine Corps Marathon and Together We Shall podcast. Dan is a recent recipient of the President's Coin for being an ally. One heck of an ally. Turn Ainsley's Angels marathoner with Team Cassidy out there. He's kind of reliving the course and walking the dog through the course. So he got us to mile 22. He's in Crystal City at the aid station with our Ainsley's Angels team. Of course, they're going to be there next year too. There's already planning to make that bigger and better, Dan, rest assured. You leave Crystal City, and now you can see the Pentagon and the last 5K of the race. How you feeling? What's happening?
I'm feeling like, is there a timing mat over there, or can I cut this part of the course? Because I was ready to get to the finish line. It was I was because you kind of loop around that parking lot there. It was I was feeling good though. You know, I mean, all marathoners were hurting. I mean, we saw some guy stretching. He could barely walk at halfway. I turned down to Cassie. I said, he's going to have a long 13 miles home because people were hurting. But, you know, honestly, we're talking a little bit about some of the things that our families have to deal with. And that's what I thought about. I thought about, you know, the pain that, you know, families who are dealing with, you know, children with disabilities or special needs and things that they have to deal with day in and day out that someone like myself couldn't even imagine. You know, who cares if my legs hurt? Who cares if my feet hurt? You know, I wanted to bring that positive joy, that positive vibes. And, you know, it was all about encouragement. It was all about inclusion. Runners were encouraging. I was encouraging other runners. And so despite the quads, despite my traps, my neck, like I said, I was a little tense there. You know, I was hurting those last couple miles, make no mistake. But I definitely gave it the full sprint, mile 26.1 up that hill. Just because, you know, again, my problems were insignificant compared to what people overcome each and every day. And so to cross the finish line wearing that pink Ainsley's Angels visor, again, it's a moment I'll never forget.
Yeah, full circle.
And then to see the memorial. Let's talk about that, because you cross the finish line and there's runners. You know, there's thousands of people, and there's tents and media and cameras and Marines and aid stations. But then you look up above all of that madness, and then sitting at perfect elevation, you can see the war memorial there, the Iwo Jima Memorial, and it stands out. It's spectacular, and it was definitely you know, an experience, and it kind of really brought everything back home. You know, after the 26.2 miles of chaos and pandemonium, you have a chance to kind of, you know, again, see what it's all about.
Yeah, Joe has run up that hill many times, and I appreciate you painting that picture for both of us. We can definitely bring ourselves back to times when we've gone up that hill. And I told everybody at the pasta dinner in a way that hopefully wasn't too in your face, but that hill was Ainsley's final finish line in 2015. And as a Marine, Joe and I know that the flag raising on Iwo Jima happened in 1945 on February 23rd. And so for that to be Ainsley's final race, and then fast forward the clock a couple months, she actually passed away on February 23rd. And I remember driving back from Quantico after Lori and I spoke and got the news, and I'm headed down the interstate, and, you know, all emotional and crying through things and trying to figure out what the next steps in life look like and how are we going to go on. And it hit me. Oh my gosh, it's February 23rd. And at that moment, it was one of those crying laughs / cursing. Like, what the hell did you do here? And so, I mean, I only mention that because February 23rd is a day that my wife and I'll never, ever, ever forget. But to have it so symbolically tied to the Iwo Jima flag raising and the Marine Corps Marathon finish line, like, I don't really know. Is that just coincidence?
Well, the fourth and, like, you know, craziest one is that you were in Quantico that day. You weren't at your home station in Norfolk. You were in Quantico.
Yeah. And I didn't do a whole lot of TAD or travel, you know, because we were here for Ainsley's stability. And there were times in her latter years where I didn't go places because she was definitely fragile, and I didn't want to be away. But her and I went for a run on February 21st. Her and I and Joe came and made the trip over. And God, dude, just remembering that, I have happiness and I have sorrow. My eyes are watering up as I'm reliving this, but, like, again, nobody knew she was going to die on February 23rd. Of course, that's the beauty of life. We never know when it's our day. But for us to have a February 21st Sunday where the weather was beautiful, and that doesn't happen here, and for Joe to be around to come over and for us to do a half-mile with her, like her final run. I mean, dude, anyway, again, the question, is that just coincidence?
I believe things are connected, and there's we're all connected. That's, you know, I'm not a very religious person, but I definitely believe that there are things in the universe that happen for a reason. And so coincidence is one way to look at it, and then destiny is another. And I'm sure someone more articulate than me can come up with a third, but it's pretty powerful, Rooster. That's pretty powerful indeed.
It wasn't my plan to share that on this episode, but Dan, as you were recounting the run up the hill and the Iwo Jima Memorial, I thought it was a fitting place to kind of toss that in there for everybody's awareness. And you said, Dan, sometimes there's more to it than coincidence, and that ties us right back to where we started on this podcast, man. Like, there's so much more to it than coincidence that you just so happen to get a job at rock and roll and do your thing and do your jam, and then we establish this relationship that leads to the garage and leads to all the things that have followed thereafter. So I just pause with gratitude for the lack of coincidences.
No, I want to say it was Steve Jobs or someone gave a commencement speech at a graduation. You see those on social media all the time, right? Different highlights of people's graduation speeches, but they look back. And you at the time, you can't see how the dots are connected, right? When you're in the moment. But when you look back, you can see how those dots kind of connected. And so, that was something that you and I shared, back on Thursday when we got into town. It was, we didn't know in 2015 or 2011 or 2016 that we were going to be hanging out in Washington, D.C. in 2025. But, but we've kept in touch and we obviously get along and have a great relationship, and we're both in this incredible running community. And so when you look back and see how the dots connect, I'm excited about, the future and even more dots connected. I think in, 5 years, 10 years, we're going to be able to look back and, I think the 2025 Marine Corps marathon was just one dot and how this is all going to connect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and like the recap that has happened, here today has been great. And like you as your first time Marine Corps marathoner and Angels marathoner who's done, like you said, been at how many New York Cities and Bostons and Big Surs and all those big ones. At one point this weekend, you said, I don't want to miss this again. You're like,
well, at one point, I almost went and started talking to the media. We got up to the start line. I saw the press center and a TV truck. I went to knock on the window and see what time his live interviews were. And then I'm like, Dan, hold on. You're not the PR guy here. You need to you got to focus on running this race. Leave that guy alone. He's got his interviews. But then that kind of hit me, right? I was like, shoot, we could be doing a lot more storytelling. And again, I've been busy, so I want to take a little responsibility because I had intended to do some reach out to some journalists that I know in Washington, D.C., but that's something I'm excited about for next year. Help and drive our storytelling, take advantage of the platform that these marathons provide to tell our story. Because we could talk all day long on a random Tuesday in March about, Ainsley's Angels and the Marine Corps Marathon, but it's race weekend when it all comes to life. And that's where the PR and the opportunities are. And so I'm excited to be involved in the future, to continue to grow this thing, to get to 61 riders and 1 year, maybe 71 riders. I don't know what the organizational goals are, but look forward to helping, look at that vision down the road. And I think, working with the media and social media has never provided us more opportunity to tell our story. And so I'm excited about, being back there for many years. I don't want to miss it because it was just so powerful for me to be there on Saturday night, to experience it on Sunday morning, and then to see the community, the community. And now fast forward to Sunday night, we're at the lobby bar at the Holiday Inn and people are kind of relaxing and telling stories and enjoying some beverages and just to see the joy, right? I think it was the joy and the happiness for all the families. A lot of these supporters didn't even run. They've been stressed out. They've been up since 4 a.m. They've been dealing with getting kids and elevators were in service. And, there's a lot of headaches for these major marathons, right? It's not all smooth sailing. But just to look around and see people smiling and see the community that you have created and how that just brings relief to these families and folks that are dealing with, difficult circumstances was something I'll also take with me this weekend. Because as I said earlier, a lot of our families, and when you're dealing with people with disabilities, you don't have that soccer tournament community that my boys experience, when they go play soccer on Saturday night or Saturdays. This is that experience, and it's just great to be a part of it and see the happiness and the joy after everyone celebrates that incredible achievement.
Indeed. Joe, we've been out at an hour, and I know we could go for another hour. Everybody's like, wait, it's been an hour? Yeah, it's been an hour. It's been a good hour. And I think we're at the point in the show where we got to wind things down. I'll pitch it to you for some closing thoughts, and And then Dan, we're going to pass the mic to you to take us home with your final thoughts. I'm done talking here because I've done enough. And Dan, it was great to have you here to recap one heck of an amazing 50th running the Marine Marathon. Thanks for making the trip, and thanks for being here this morning, Joe.
Yeah, same. Thanks for making the trip, man. It was a whirlwind of a few days. Great seeing you again. Look forward to seeing you here in a couple months out in that beautiful palm tree environment. And just like, uh, planning for 2026 started, for those listening, and you two understand that. It's like there was one point this weekend where I was like, I couldn't even imagine doing this again next year, because this has been kind of my baby since 2015. But then you see everything all the good that happens when those 51 individuals crossed the finish line and made their way back to the tent. The riders are happy, the runners are limping, but they're still smiling. Some have some fireball. And then it's like, you know what, fine, I guess we're doing it again next year. Or 3 fireballs. I guess we're doing it again next year. And like, it's whatever today is, Wednesday. In the last 3 days, I've communicated with Marine Corps Marathon, with the registration platform individuals, Haku, the base. I'm like, the hotel. Like, we've already started planting the seeds for next year. So again, if you're listening and interested, just hit me up on email. I'm not going to say it because it's too long. But I look forward to seeing more of you out there in 2026.
And I think we talked about 51 riders, 51 chairs. And again, one of the things I want to do is be a part of that setup on Saturday. I know I was out of town and missed it, but there's a lot of work that goes into it, Joe. So shout out to you, especially for your management of the logistics. I want to give you a compliment as someone who was on the WhatsApp group, as someone who didn't look at the course map, but definitely looked at that PowerPoint twice to know what I was supposed to be doing. As a participant, as a runner, I thought the communication that we received from Ainsley's Angels was as good as any organization in terms of just having that information, having that support. Not only were we getting emails, we were getting the WhatsApp group texts. It was easy to ask questions. And so, like you said, there's a lot of work that goes into these races, months and months and a year in advance. And so I know that as an event organizer. So Joe, kudos to you, especially for the detailed organization, because you did a great job.
With that,
appreciate it. What Dan's got to tell us about is announcement.
Well, you guys are talking about next year. I'm talking about this weekend. We've got Ainsley's Angels athletes that are going to be at the Thrive Half Marathon in San Diego. We're already looking forward to the San Diego Santa Run, which is a huge event that we could do in December. Tricia and I, we're not stopping. We can't. Last week, what happened last weekend? I got things to do this weekend. But one thing I do want to share, the organizers of the Surf City Marathon, incredible people. My colleague, Phyllis Blanchard, she's an amazing woman. Julie Coleman, race director, amazing woman. Ainsley's Angels is obviously the benefiting charity partner of the Beer Garden Finish Line, bringing us out so many volunteers. So if you live on the West Coast or you just want to enjoy a vacation, that first Sunday in February, we need volunteers. We need supporters to help us open beer and serve those runners as they celebrate their achievement. Actually, this is where it all started. Joe and I were schlepping ice and beer and tents and zip ties at the Surf City Marathon beer garden. And Joe said, "You got to come out to Marine Corps." And then it's the 50th year. I'm saying, "Hey, don't confuse a PR guy with a milestone anniversary." So, but every year during Surf City Marathon, we raise upwards of $10,000-$20,000 that goes back into our Ainsley's Angels community and has gone to purchase racing chairs. And so, as an organization, I'm committed to helping, and we're committed to a goal of $30,000 for Ainsley's Angels. That's our goal, putting it out there on the internet. I saw something on social media the other day. You have to speak your reality. You have to speak your boundaries. I want to speak this goal onto the internet right now. We want a goal, and so I'm going to be talking to all those runners who drink a lot of Michelob Ultra because we want to raise $30,000 for the 30th running. It's our 30th anniversary of the Surf City Marathon in Huntington Beach. An incredible community, incredible race, and so we're so excited. Hopefully we'll have 30 chairs there, and it's a great event, and so that's what I wanted to kind of talk about today. Phyllis, one of our executives, put that idea in my head, and I said, "Phyllis, I love that," and so now we have new goals coming up. So before October rolls around, we've got February plans that are already underway.
So for everybody that's listening, the first weekend in February down there in Southern California for the big $30,000 goal, but also an amazing weekend of inclusion to go see Dan and see what Dan and Trisha and all of our SoCal family is up to. Is that basically what you're inviting us to do?
Well, Joe's already given us the biggest compliment, right? Because he came last year and I'm coming back, right? That's the biggest compliment. If someone wants to return, they had a good time. So I don't think I need to say much more than that. But no, It's been great joining you guys. I'm going to sign off as well and get on with my day. But just again, I as someone who's been in this community since 2008, I know hundreds of runners and done dozens of events. Marine Corps Marathon is up there at the top of the list. It's something I'll never forget. And I just can't say thank you enough for making it happen. You, Rooster, for your friendship and leadership, and as the founder of this incredible organization, and your family's there, and your daughter and your wife. And so I know, there's no BS. This is what it's all about. And so that's my favorite kind of PR and media and friendship. So look forward to seeing you guys again in the future. And we'll be out there this Saturday in San Diego promoting inclusion and promoting Ainsley's Angels.
We're done. This was good.
Yeah, we're done here.
Find your people, and if they make you feel sexy, even better.